Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us. This is What Now. I am Precious Amayu. Let's start off with a war in the Middle East. Senior Iranian officials have blamed Washington for stalled peace negotiations due to the United States' naval blockade of the country's ports. Iran's president, Masoud Pezeshkian, said Tehran wants a dialogue and agreement, but breach of commitments, blockade, and threats are the main obstacles to genuine negotiations. Iran's chief negotiator on Wednesday said it was not possible to reopen the Strait of Hormuz, accusing the U.S. and Israel of breaching the ceasefire. This is as Tehran claims to have received its first revenue from tolls it imposed on ships passing through the Strait of Hormuz amid a standoff with the U.S. over the vital waterway. Meanwhile, U.S. President Donald Trump has also said there is no deadline for ending the war with Iran, the ceasefire, or Tehran's response to his request for a peace proposal. However, the war continues to take its toll on economies in Africa as oil prices continues to rise. Fertilizer prices have also surged in the continent's key planting season, raising concerns of further food insecurity in a continent where people are already living below poverty line. Joining me now for more on this war that has been commanding global attention and its impact on Africa as well is founder, Constituency for Africa, Melvin Foote. Good to have you join us.
Thank you very much.
So I wanted to start generally with this war, and then we'll narrow down to the impact on Africa. A comment coming from President Trump is that there is no deadline for ending the war. There is no deadline for the ceasefire or Tehran's response to his request for a peace proposal. Basically, that looks like there is no end in sight to this war. I mean, what do you make of that, and what does that signal?
Well, when President Trump got us into this war, he told us it was going to be like 1 week. You know, he told the American people it was going to be 1 week. And people were not happy about it. His base, in fact, was not happy about it because he had promised during the campaign that he's going to get us out of these endless wars. So again, there's a promise that was not kept. And now we have no idea how long this is going to go. Yesterday, the defense secretary, the war secretary, fired the Navy chief, you know, just like that. Well, how are we going to do whatever we're going to do? There's a lot of confusion about it, and I don't see it ending anytime soon.
And then the parts of Lebanon and Israel, Lebanon is also saying that, look, the ceasefire may not continue unless Israel withdraws from its country. I mean, it looks like this war is complicated, you know, on all sides. And I just wonder what that means for the Middle East, the Gulf region.
I think it's going to it means chaos, no doubt about it. You know, countries are aligning and realigning with each other. Weapons are all over the place. You know, these drones are proliferating. I don't see how this is going to be helpful at all in terms of any stability in the Middle East.
And let's bring it down to Africa. Without a clear exit strategy out of this war, how vulnerable does this leave African countries?
Well, I mean, Africa was always vulnerable. I had a conversation last week with Aliko Dangote here at the World Bank spring meetings. And, you know, he's a tremendous entrepreneur, and he sees this as a chance for Africa to become more dependent on itself. You know, Africans can, you know, we got the oil in Africa. Why can't African countries access that oil? So he's trying to make some of this happen, which I think is a good thing. On the one hand, if we're totally dependent on the West and the Middle East and other parts of the world, Africa would never get out of the predicament it's in. So I'm optimistic that Africa at the end of the day is going to be better off because it's becoming self-reliant.
I will get to that point of being better off in just a moment. But we've seen a surge in fuel prices, and you know, again across the world, and an obstruction of trade routes leading to and that has led us now to shortages of fertilizer. We are in the key planting season in Africa, and people are already worried about food insecurity. How valid are those concerns?
Well, they're valid, no question about it. And again, Dangote is saying that he's into the fertilizer business now. He's actually you know, producing it, which I think is good. I think others need to jump in and do it as well. Again, depending on outside countries to provide your fertilizer, to provide your medicine, this is very unsustainable. So I think that we're now opening our eyes a little bit. It's going to be a pressure, no question about it. But Africans have been in a bad situation in many countries anyway. It's not going to get any better anytime soon. Fuel prices, the airline fuel prices are skyrocketing, and Africa is certainly feeling the brunt, as is people here in the United States. You go down to the grocery store and try to buy a dozen eggs, and you'd be shocked at what the price is. So we're complaining over here. I know it's bad on the continent as well.
I mean, what makes it really different in Africa is that many countries are already reeling and reeling from effects of, again, climate change and effects of conflicts in their country, and then you add this on top of it. And that just leads me to my next question, which is talking about earlier shocks that the continent has suffered. We've had the issue of COVID-19 pandemic. There is the Russia-Ukraine war that also showed African countries remain deeply exposed to global volatility. I'm wondering why we are always victims of distant wars and conditions we have no say in.
Well, I'm looking at France, for instance. We all know what France has done in the Sahel and French-speaking countries, and they have just basically ripped these countries off. Now they're going to Nigeria, they're going to Kenya, smiling and, oh, my brother is my friend. Africa got to wake up. Africa has got to wake up and start to recognize the power it has. Africa is a threat because Africa has all these strategic minerals. We know about the coltan and the lithium and all these other minerals that Africa seems to have the breadbasket for. And the rest of the world, China, the United States, and others need those minerals. So we're doing all kinds of things to compete with China in Africa, and Africa has got to look at that and say, okay, this is our time to win. Whether the money is coming from the U.S. or whether it's coming from China or anywhere else, Africa has got to look out for Africa's interest.
And some of these minerals you mentioned are in mines that are controlled by foreign actors. And I'm wondering if we'll ever get to the point, or what do we do to get to the point where we're insulated from conflicts and international conditions?
I'm hearing reports that Burkina Faso has, changed the mining code. I think Zimbabwe has just changed it. Zambia is changing it. I'm hearing, but it's got to be more than just talk. It's got to be action. It got to lead toward job development for this next generation of young people. It got to mean infrastructure development in Africa like we've never seen before. It remains to be seen. I wonder where the Africa Union is on this. I'm still not hearing enough from the Africa Union about Africa's plan for the future or how we deal with the rest of the world. And I think the African diaspora, people like myself, I'm born in America, but I'm an African American. I speak languages. I've been to 42 countries. Use me. Every time I turn around, African countries are paying some white lobby firm on K Street to do something that I could do in my sleep. But that's the challenge we had. How do we unify? How do we take advantage of what we have going now? And we got a long way to go, no doubt about it.
In terms of the long way to go, are we also missing an opportunity here? Because Pakistan has just jumped in and become the mediator in this war. There is no doubt that that's a boost to its foreign outlook. And I'm wondering if we're also missing an opportunity here to play a vital role. What Africa has done mostly, especially in the West African bloc, is to remain neutral.
Yeah, I think we're missing, definitely missing the point. Again, I think I would look toward the Africa Union as should have come to the U.S. Okay, why don't we sit together and agree on a strategy? This is what Africa wants, then you talk about what you want and really come to some agreement. But they don't do it. So the U.S. picked Pakistan because we see them as somewhat our friend, So another way of beating Africa is to go around the corner to a friend and say, why don't you talk to the Africans to get what we want? And that's where we are right now. We got a long way to go, no doubt about it.
But do we have the leverage and the gravitas that it requires to mediate?
We could have it. I can say like Dan Gotti was in town. There were 10,000 people here for the World Bank meetings. And Dan Gotti was citizen number one who everybody wanted to talk to. To me, that's an example. But we really got to work on our strategy. This lobbying in Washington, Africans are absolutely wrong on how they go about lobbying Washington. You look at who's they're asking to support and make the argument for them. They're getting the wrong people to talk to the wrong people. And so Africa cannot win in that kind of scenario. We got to strengthen the African ambassadors here in Washington. There's a few new ones here that I'm kind of optimistic on, but we're still talking about 5 or 6. I'm waiting to see what the Nigerian ambassador is going to do. They apparently appointed a new one here. I haven't met him yet, but we need Nigeria, we need the Congo, we need these big countries, Angola, to really step up now. It's time. Time for talk is over. We got to really stand up and take an aggressive approach to negotiating with the West, including the United States.
Definitely, we do. Thank you so much for your time, as always. Founder, Constituency for Africa, Melvin Fultz.
Thank you.